Hello and welcome to the AXIOM Insights Learning and Development Podcast. I'm Scott Rutherford. This podcast series is focused on supporting performance through learning. In this episode, we're exploring a holistic professional development journey for women that's been designed to bridge the many roles and expectations of women, both personally and professionally. My guests are Karen Hinds. Karen is the CEO of the Workplace Success Group. She's also a senior leadership advisor, speaker, and author. I'm also joined by coach and speaker Leida Centeno and Inga Lee Puentes, who has been an early participant in the program that Karen built called the Renew Experience for Women. So Karen, Leida, and Inga Lee, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having us.
So I'd like to start with you, Karen. We've spoken before. It's been a couple of years since you've been on this podcast, so welcome back.
Thanks for having me back. Love to be here.
So you've been working as an expert advisor for companies for over 20 years?
Actually, 27 plus years now. Yeah.
27. Okay.
It's been a while.
So that's a good well of experience. And I wanted to sort of start from there to say, well, what were you seeing? What were the issues you encountered, or what were the trends that you were seeing that led you to create the Renew Experience, which is really what we're going to be exploring in this conversation? How did you come to where we are today?
See, thanks for asking that question. So in the last 27 plus years of doing this work, I work primarily with men in the C-suite and senior leaders. And anytime we did a leadership workshop or any kind of leadership consulting, I was mostly working with men. And then I would meet the women here or there, and they were always stressed and frustrated and trying to figure out how to claw their way to the top. And I just kept going along until I realized, probably about 7 or 8 years ago, I had my own frustrating, life experiences, so to speak, where, I had some personal shifts, I had some professional shifts, and found myself at a loss and realized, wait a minute, I've now become one of those women who were in a senior position and trying to figure out, how do I recalibrate? I was going on burnout. I was frustrated. I was basically empty, and saw that I had to now put myself back together, so to speak, and did that. And now I'm able to offer the same solution to the women who I'm working with now.
So when you're talking about burnout, and this is something, actually, there was an episode we recently had talking about women's leadership and the gulf that exists in so many organizations when you have women with decades of experience who aren't being respected or aren't being listened to for the experience they bring. Is that part of what you're talking about?
I think I had a personal shift first. I went through a divorce. And then I also had a time in my life where I was at a crossroads at my company. I built a successful company. So explain to me why I was still feeling empty. And it doesn't make sense, does it? So you've spent 20 plus years building a successful company, working with leaders globally. I've written 5 books. On paper, I have it all. Yet there was an emptiness, a gnawing in my soul, I'd like to call it, that made me realize this can't be it. There has to be more than what I was experiencing. This can't be the sum of my life. And that began me shifting to thinking, how do I live a life from purpose, from vision? And how do I live in a place where I'm not constantly clawing and fighting? Instead, I should show up with a level of confidence and vitality and strength that rivaled, anything that was out there at the time.
So where does that lead you in terms of the experience that you've now crafted in the Renew Experience, which is, well, let's start by maybe just from the start. What are we talking about? What is the Renew Experience?
So the Renew Experience is a 3-day retreat where women are able to, I like to say, they're going from burnout to breakthrough. It's about building a community that, these women are able to build resilience, where they're able to really live life from a place where they have renewed purpose, where they have unstoppable confidence, but they're doing so in a safe, supportive environment. And it's not just an event. We have opportunities after the experience where they're able to continue to sustain their growth in community, and we have different levels where we offer that. So I think for other events, it's a one and done. And the one thing I realized from my own personal experience, I've gone to lots of conferences. I've been the speaker at these conferences. But what we're missing was vulnerability, transparency, safe communities where women can be supported. Then, from that launching point, look at how they develop themselves, mind, body, and soul, instead of solely thinking about my leadership skills, because I am more than my job title. I'm a whole person. So, addressing the entirety of the woman is one of the ways that we stand out. So, continuous learning, mind, body, and soul development, sacred, safe community where you're going to be supported 110%.
Right. Yeah, that does resonate. I mean, obviously, I'm not a woman, but
I was just
I
going to
have
say, Scott,
I
what
do try to
happened
listen.
here?
Uh, and my effectiveness as a listener may be something we can do a whole other episode on. But
Yeah.
what I have heard from women I've talked to over the years is that there's a pressure to, you have to overperform in
Yes.
all of the buckets you exist in. If you have a home bucket or a professional bucket or whatever the spheres that you're operating in, but there's a pressure to keep them separate too. And
Yes.
so what I'm hearing from you though is to say, well, you kind of needed to break down those barriers and think about how do these pieces all fit together holistically in a way that's not maybe overwhelming.
You nailed it right there, and I think that's what sets us apart in the work that we do through the Renew community, the Renew experience. We have to stop having women compartmentalize their life because it's still one person. So how does she be a phenomenal woman at work and at home she's suffering? Or she's doing phenomenally well at home, but at work she's suffering. So we're not asking women to check their issues at the door. We're saying, come and bring all of you. And we've created a community of experts, and we've created a community of peer learners and leaders who are able to address the entire woman, as you said, mind, body, and soul. So she's with us, and when she grows, and then she comes to our events, and she comes to our opportunities, she's being addressed as a whole person. We see all of her.
And you sort of referred to the experts and the facilitators, and I think that's a perfect moment to bring Leida in. Leida, thanks for being here too.
My
Could you
pleasure.
help me explain or help me understand what's your role in the program? I understand you're a coach and a speaker or facilitator, or how does that work?
So I am a coach and I'm a speaker. I am the founder of Encourage LLC. I also happen to be friends with Karen. I think for me, here's what I've learned from these conferences. I love when Karen said that we've been to many conferences. I've been in the field of mental health for about 30 years. I've been a director of clinical services, helped develop people to move forward with their careers. And I think we speak all the time from the mind and the body. And we forget that there's a whole soul that lives inside of people. And what I have learned from myself is that when that soul gets refreshed, I get better in everything else that I do. You are taught to perform. And I love what you said when you said that women have many different buckets. I always thought of myself, and I have counted them. I can do about 5 things at the same time. These experience, the last 3 years of my life, has taught me that I need to do 4 things. I need to be the number one, and that way I can do 5 and do them well. When I am the first thing, the first awakening I had helping Karen and listening to her ideas about renew is the lie that people tell us that we cannot give what we don't have. You know what I realized? I've been given what I don't have for a very, very long time, hoping that someone is going to pour back into my bucket. And the reality is that this is where Renew is different, right? You come for a 3-day experience. You make friends. You turn around and you begin to realize there's other people who are as burned out and frustrated as I am, putting on their makeup and showing up for everybody else. That's the very first thing that happens. And then you begin to hear the stories, and a sisterhood has begun to be developed. And then you don't leave me alone for another year after Renew ends. Like Karen said, Renew has different layers. I happen to be involved in every single layer. And the Renew Learn is fantastic. I have a group that I've been meeting with for like 6 months now. Sometimes it's just a half hour, and sometimes we spend a whole hour talking about our lives. And your refresh and your desire to change and transform is always at the front of your mind.
So it's peer support. It's shared experiences. It's there's sounds like there's a lot of emotional intelligence in here. So it's sort of bridging the we talk about hard skills and soft skills sometimes in learning. This really seems integrated between the two.
And there's skill
Absolutely.
building. There's skill building as well. Go ahead, Leila.
No, absolutely. And one of the things that I've taken time to do after joining Renew is begin to look at data. I have worked with every type of person, right? I've worked with women who are recovering from drugs and alcohol. I have dealt with leaders, women who are at the forefront of their professional careers. But when you talk to all of them, I just found out, and this is just through the process I've been. I'm a program developer, I'm a program writer. I never thought I could write books and I can write stories. I've discovered this after entering Renew. And in my research on values based living, I realized that the woman who was in the program recovering from addiction or mental health and the woman in the C suite have the same problem. They don't know how to define their value. They only know how to perform and function because we have to outperform men sometimes in order to get the right position. Then we come home. There was a study done by Parents Magazine. 100% of the women who did that study said that moms don't do self care.
Hmm.
We are so focused on our performance and our bodies are suffering for it. And we don't understand that there is a shift. There's an upside down switch. If you grow your soul and build community, vulnerability, and transparency, what happens is you refill your tank faster and then you can give from a space of overflowing.
Okay. Well, I'm going to bring in Inga Lee to the conversation now. Inga, you've been a participant. Talk me through how you became aware of this program and what were Well, let's start from there. How did you become aware of it, and what was appealing?
Oh, sure. So I've been in corporate America for over 20 years, and I had the pleasure of going to one of Karen's seminars many, many years ago. And so I've been connected with Karen through, emails that come out and catching up every so often. And this came through at a time where I've been to tons of different conferences, through corporate world or trying to do things on my own. I also do a lot of personal development. And so when this came to me, and the other part of me is that I've been working from home for the last 6 years. So I really I was lacking a sense of community. And I went to this experience with that in mind of, I want to connect with other women that are, thinking the same thing as me, or, will help me grow. And that's really what I went with. And I didn't know if it was going to happen, but I knew Karen, and I knew she knew, people from where my hometown was, and people from now where I live. So I'm like, I'll at least have that in common when I get there. And so when I went as my corporate self or work self. And as I was sitting there, over the first day, I was like, wow, this isn't, people are bringing more than their work self to this. They're bringing their whole self. And I think we started to kind of break down barriers and have those really meaningful conversations with each other that really created very fast trust. And so with that fast trust, I connected with women that first day that, I was looking for them the next day, and we kept meeting new people. And now after the fact, I was still connected with women that are just to talk to, not connected to anything of, the learning experience. We just stayed connected. And then I also did the coaching through the learning experience just to keep going. But what I've liked the most about it is that you don't feel like you're alone. People are sharing real stuff about themselves because of that trust. And they were looking for that same thing, just that sense of community, that it has been a place of accountability. So it's not just, you're going and you're talking about things, you're going with a plan. And you're telling people your goals, and they're asking you about them, like, oh, what are you doing now? Like, how, one, they want to know about your life, but two, they want to know, okay, you said you were going to do something. Have you done it? And that's, I think, what's really the difference in a lot. I can't even tell you how many conferences I've been to. That is really the biggest difference, to just feel like, okay, even though I'm working from home and I don't really have friends around me to go stop by their desk, I can text somebody and just have a quick conversation. And if we need to hop on the phone, we will.
Yeah, just to chase that a little bit, because I think there's an interesting, and this is maybe a little bit of a divergence, perhaps not. But you're talking about working from home, and I've had a lot of conversations from especially over the past few years as we've all been navigating work from home, return to office initiatives,
Mm-hmm.
and trying to bridge sort of the need to be accommodating of people's work locations and their own lives, for that matter, versus trying to build a place of belonging or a culture. And a lot of the solutions, and I'll put that sort of in air quotes, solutions that I've seen have been a little bit ham-handed in that, okay, we want everybody to come back to the office so we can build community, again in air quotes, by having having pizza on the office on Friday, which to me never seems very meaningful. So what it sounds like this workshop and this experience is a little bit. It's an intentional way to perhaps build community that's more meaningful to your employees. So maybe Karen, can I bring you back in here, because
Sure.
I want to think about, like, if you have a team, especially if you're listening to this and you happen to be in a senior leadership role. Is this something that you would recommend, like an executive bringing their managers and a cohort from an organization to build shared skills or experience? Is that part of this?
Oh yeah, most definitely. I think we talk about authentic connections and communication, but rarely do we create a safe space for that to happen. And in this environment, we're able to break down those silos, break down those barriers that prevent us from achieving that by getting to know the person. And we talk about, you talk about bringing teams. Teams are feeling isolated. So we have this isolation crisis that's going on in the world right now. So you might be part of a team in words, but you could be isolated in a team. And we know that 20% of employees feel that way right now. But as you think about your team's development, a leader has to think about turnover. And if you're able to create an environment where they feel there's trust and there's authenticity and there's opportunity for growth, because we don't just want to sit around and have great conversation. There has to be growth, and we focus on accountability. So that then mitigates the risk of turnover, a turnover risk that every company is concerned about. And we could go on and talk about connection and the productivity impact. But yes, this is for that team that is craving that authentic opportunity for them to build together, because when you find that people are able to live and grow in community, productivity is not an issue. But we
Mm-hmm.
keep going to that less productivity. You have to deal with the human being. And if I'm unfulfilled at work, if I feel torn up inside emotionally because I'm still dealing with what happened in my past boss, or I don't know how to manage what's going on with myself emotionally at home. And there's a whole myriad of problems that people are facing. If you haven't created space where people feel safe, you're not going to get any productivity out of them. I'm not advocating that leaders become therapists. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying there has to be a level of awareness and empathy that it's much more than the title, that people are much more than title, and they're much more than the quotas or the results or the goals that are set for the teams.
Right. Yeah, so much of building a culture and building a team is about trust
Ah,
creating a space of safety.
yes, yes.
Is really important. Inga, I want to come back to you and just ask you. Um, so, looking back on it, can you look at, are there ways that you find yourself acting or thinking differently about your job and your role in your life uh, since going through the initial experience and then subsequently?
Absolutely. I think, what I see is I take a little bit more time to take a breath and really think about why somebody might be coming from a position that they are, and understanding as well everybody is going through their own journey. So being a little bit more empathetic. I've always been really good with relationship building, so I feel like this has helped me more with that. And especially from working from home, I need all I can get to create those relationships and keep that going. But I do feel like it's helped me. I've always had really good, what's the word that I want to use? Routines, right, in the morning and things like that. And so this has helped me kind of solidify, what does my morning look like? And I kind of, I come to work ready. And so now, I've kind of had time for myself before the workday has started, and then I also make it at the back end and in the middle. Like I take time, block it to make sure I'm getting up and moving, and that really helps with my productivity, my thinking, clearing my mind, and mood, right, and being able to stay calm and in a happy place as well.
Right. Well, that's the recharge, renew element. That's taking a minute just to be human and to take care. It's self care, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
So, Leida, I'm curious from your perspective as facilitating this. Is it sounds like these behaviors and perspectives. There's probably some sort of a trickle down effect or a network effect, maybe, to put it better. Do you see that happening as you bring in women to the experience and they sort of go off and start to incorporate this in their daily lives? Does that have a plus one? Are they then teaching the people they come in contact with? Is that part of this?
Absolutely. Listen, I never worked with teenagers. That's not my favorite population. This year, I am bringing my granddaughter because a lot of the work, though, and I am a therapist. I've been a therapist for 30 years, but at home, you try not to be that. But I found that there are lessons that I can begin to incorporate to these 13-year-old. We do a lot of work with limiting beliefs and trying to communicate what a value is. I began to work on explaining values at the seventh grade level, and so of course my experiment was my granddaughter. And when she read it, she was able to immediately connect family as one of her most important values. But the one thing that I noticed was, okay, so you're a girl and you're already thinking about what you give to other people. But she surprised me. She came up with a limiting belief at 13. A child who has love and affection and a safe home said, maybe sometimes I'm not enough for other people. And so beginning to catch that women, it doesn't matter where we are in our growth, we can use these understanding now, and then we can go backwards like I'm doing in my home. And I see it with my two daughters. I've brought several of my friends over. Some have come to renew and some have now joined the learning community because Karen has done something amazing. She's removed the red tape out of understanding your limiting beliefs. You cannot help but wanting to go back to a friend and saying, let me bring you somewhere that somebody's going to help you understand this in a better way, in a community setting where you're not criticized for what you do. But the question usually is, can I push you there? Can I help me understand what it is you're speaking about? And you can see the growth on the people around you as you are growing. And then you can set limits for the people who are always taking out of your buckets. I think that has been really inspiring for me.
Yeah, it's really interesting to help. I imagine help women understand, the barriers that they might be managing to are not as fixed or as impermeable as they might seem. That's something that I think people struggle with. Is often I don't want to call it a limitation of imagination, but if you've experienced some life and you've been pushed in a certain way, sometimes it's hard to see that what that barrier that I see is not as real or immutable or as insurmountable as I'm perhaps thought it was.
Yeah, I
Yes.
think if I can jump in there 1 second, I think here's the thing that you need friends to come with light to show you that. And I think that's part of what's happening at Renew.
And I'll also add that I think going through COVID and going through the last number of years, it has taught us that we can no longer do work the way we've been doing work. It does not serve us well. We have too many people who are burning out. We have too many people who are having mental health crises. We have too much collateral damage because we have imagined work in a certain way. What would happen if we were to think out of the box and truly and authentically invite the whole person into the equation,
That's right.
and notice that you get further faster instead of this very limited approach to just give me the result, just give me the numbers, and
Mm-hmm.
expect people to be robotic. I'm just going to challenge all of your listeners. What would happen if you imagined work a different way? And the wonderful thing about the Renew community is it's global. So we're not just serving women in the United States, we're serving women in the Caribbean, in Canada, and throughout the US. And we're hoping to add other women from around the world. So this is not just a US or movement. This is a global movement. We need to imagine work differently to get different results.
Yeah, and we talk about performance in this podcast. That's sort of the we talk about this podcast as the intersection of learning and performance. But if I were to say to someone in a senior leadership position that here's a way perhaps that you can increase the performance
Mhm.
of half, give or take, of your workforce. Why wouldn't you look at that? That's an enormous
Mhm.
missed opportunity if you're not fully supporting half of your workforce to be able to perform and step up and deliver and bring themselves to the organization,
But
right?
let me add something else. We're now in the age of AI. And you're now taking away some of the technical skills that people have. What's left now is that ability to be emotionally present, to be able to build relationships. How are we going to do that and do it effectively if our people are coming from an empty place? And this is one of the skills, they're no longer soft skills. Our friend Dr. Maria Kekler talked about these soft skills are now structural skills in an AI world. So companies need to rethink, how are you preparing your workers in an AI era? Let's ensure that they're taking care of themselves, mind, body, and soul, so they can then bring all of their creativity,
Mm-hmm.
all of themselves in their authentic power to bring the results the organization needs.
So before I finish, I did want to make sure I was clear to ask. So, what sort of level of seniority do you expect for participants of this? Leida, you sort of alluded to sort of trying out parts of it on your grandkids, which I think is
Mm-hmm.
amazing. But in the professional sphere, is there anybody who's too junior to get value out of this, or is it everybody?
No, I think we're humans. And I think we've created these silos by seniority when really, as Leila said earlier on, the women who are at the very beginning of their career and those who are senior are facing some of the same issues.
Mm-hmm.
So what we're bringing is, because we have peer learning in this community, there's women who are senior, we have cohorts of senior women, we have cohorts of junior women, we have cohorts of mid-level women. So there's a space for the woman who's ready to bring change to her life. And those who are interested could join us in September, because of the next Renew experience will be happening in Florida at West Palm Beach, the PGA Resort, September 18th to the 21st. And if they can't make that, they can join us on the Renew Learn communities.
Karen, I think you read my mind or read my notes, because I was about to ask you what comes next and how can people learn
So
more.
they can log on to KarenHinds.com as a way to start. They can get all of our information there. They can get the trainings. They can get a direct link to the experience as well as all the other offerings that we have. So go to KarenHinds.com, or they can try TheRenewExperience.com, whichever they like. The Renew Experience, if that's what you remember, or Karen Hinds, Hinds, by the
Thanks,
way.
Karen. Yeah, and I'll put links in the episode page for this episode, AXIOMLearningSolutions.com/podcast. So that'll be a handy way to get to those websites as well. So,
Awesome.
Inga Lee, Leida, and Karen, this has been fun. Thanks very much for making the time.
Thank you
Thanks
for
a lot.
having me.
Appreciate it.
This has been the AXIOM Insights Learning and Development Podcast. This podcast is a production of AXIOM Learning Solutions. AXIOM is a learning and development services firm with a network of learning professionals in the U.S. and worldwide, supporting L&D teams with learning staff augmentation and project support for instructional design, content management, content creation, and more, including training delivery and facilitation, both in person and virtually. To learn more about how AXIOM can help you and your team achieve your learning goals, visit AXIOMLearningsolutions.com. And thanks again for listening to the AXIOM Insights podcast.